Joe writes in, he says, if you're keeping Passover outside of Israel, are you supposed to be circumcised? This is a question that we get every single year when Passover's coming up. We get it in all different forms. Things like this. We also get it in the form of, I'm having a Passover Seder. I don't know if all the males are circumcised. What do I do? These are the kind of questions that we get. And I will give you my answer, and then, of course, I will kick it over to the man himself. So, circumcision is only required to participate in the eating of the Passover sacrifice. And so if we had a sacrifice, which we don't because the temple is not standing, then a person would have to be circumcised in order to partake in that meal. However, since we do not have a lamb, now we get into different territory. And the reason I say different territory is because there is a debate within the church and within the ecclesia of God, the covenant members of God, on whether or not a person needs to be in covenant with God to sit down at the Passover table at all. And this comes from 1 Corinthians 10, and when Paul talks about a person eating in an unworthy manner. This, I think, comes down to each community and what Paul is actually talking about. I personally do not think that a person has to be circumcised, physically circumcised, to sit down and partake in the Passover meal. And beyond that, I don't think that anyone should be standing at the front door, inspecting the males that come in to participate in their Passover Seder to see whether or not they are actually snipped or not. So I think that this is the answer to that is no.
All males go to the right. Meet Caleb.
Go behind
in
the curtain, please. No. Yeah, exactly. So I don't
behind the curtain over there.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think that is what needs to take place. The real question that comes in is whether or not a person should be a part of the covenant member, have covenant membership with God. And of course, we as believers can't judge the heart. We can only take it upon what people say. However, we've been asked many times whether or not, I have someone coming to my house who is a woman who is a part of our community. Her husband is not a believer, but she wants to bring him. What do I do? And the answer to that is, I think this comes down to each individual community. I personally would say bring the unbeliever, and I think that there is multiple reasons why. I know that there are people who would say absolutely not because of Paul's discussion in 1 Corinthians 10 that people who are unbelievers should never be allowed to come to a Passover Seder. I take a different view of this. Obviously, if we had the lamb, it would be different. And so this does get dicey, though, if we are associating 1 Corinthians 10 with the Passover meal. Now, we've talked at length about this on this show in multiple times, and I have suggested that perhaps 1 Corinthians 10 is not actually talking about the Passover meal itself, but just the community, fellowship in the community. And I think that letter has to do with people inside the community and outside the community that are calling themselves community members. Rob, do you want to take it from there?
Yeah, I take the Last Supper as the Passover meal. So, I mean, because I know that in the larger Messianic or Hebrew roots, you'll say, oh, no, Jesus' Last Supper with his disciples was the night before the true Passover meal. So if you're coming from the position that the Last Supper is not even really a Passover, that changes then maybe your view on Passover too. Right. Like you're not thinking about that. But yeah, I agree, Caleb, with what you're saying. I think that, and another footnote on that is that raising a lamb and slaughtering it somewhere in America, and then roasting it and eating it, that doesn't, I mean, if that's what you want to do, go ahead, but that's not the Passover sacrifice, right? The Passover sacrifice has to be done. For it to be called that, to qualify, it has to be done with the priesthood, right? There's got to be an operating Levitical priesthood in it, and the temple, at Jerusalem.
Thank you so much for watching this video. Tell us your thoughts on this subject by leaving a comment in the comment section. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, and enable those notifications. And we'll see you in the next video.